legani leganuni. Makom shahaysi kari b'techila the ikar shchina v'tachtoni ma'isa. Who's gonna memorize?
I'm gonna try a lot of things we got memorized right now, but why not? Why not one more?
Okay, we're rolling there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got up to basically we spoke about the midrash. It speaks about the generations that pushed the Shekhinah out of Gan Eden and out of the seven heavens, and then the seven tzaddikim that rose after them, starting with Avram, ending with Moshe, who brought the Shekhinah back to earth. And this is what it means that Asuli mikdash v'shechanti b'socha, make for me a mikdash and I will dwell within you. In other words, that also, actually what I meant to say, but this is what it means, basi legani achosikala. Basi legani is I've come to my garden, and the idea is, the Midrash says, don't say garden, but rather chuppah, is the place I was originally married, meaning to say that the Shekhinah started off in Gan Eden on earth, connected to earth, and it was removed, and then Basi legani is I've come back, basically.
And this is like during the times of like Shlomo, right?
Really, it's during times of Moshe.
But this is like when it was written. It's like
Oh, okay, yeah, because Shlomo also, the Shekhinah then left again, basically.
Right.
And then Shlomo brought it back into the Mikdash.
Right.
Yeah. But in other words, here it's really referring to the union of the Mishkan. In other words, the Midrash comes into this pasuk. It talks about Moshe. Literally, Shlomo said it, so he's talking about himself, but the Midrash is referring to Moshe. And, right, so we went on and said that these tzaddikim that perform this service, it's not just them that does it, but it's all tzaddikim, if you will. And that's the concept of how do the tzaddikim do it? You have to make a mikdash, because that's what Moshe made also, to hold the Shekhinah into the earth. And we also have to make a mikdash, and then he will dwell within you. It doesn't say we dwell within it, but he'll dwell within you. Showing you that every one of us is shy to making a dwelling place for Hashem. And how do we do it? With the two types of avodah called hiskafi and hishapcha. Right? This is the manner of making the Mishkan out of ourselves. In doing so, we can make ourselves a dwelling place for Hashem, give Him a dwelling place in the lowest worlds. Okay, so then we got up to this line, which said that this is through the avodah of the birurim, the bechinas hiskafi v'hishapcha, which the line starts v'hu al yedei avodah. See that? It's about in the middle of the page, a little towards the bottom. See that? And then the famous statement of the Zohar, Kamaimer Kadi Skafias Achra Istalik Dikar de Kuchabricha Bakulu Almi. Yeah? If you're not going to memorize the whole thing, you have to at least memorize this. Right? Kadi Skafias Achra, when you have Hiskafia, or it is subdued, the Sitra Achra, Istalik Dikar de Kuchabrichu, so it becomes revealed the glory of Kadosh Baruch Hu b'kulu almin, in all the worlds. Okay, so this is the notion that through the avodah hiskafi hishapcha, you can reveal the glory of Hashem. You basically reveal the Shekhinah.
Saying that babies can do this.
This is something that every Jew has to do. This is the whole of life, basically, to approach the world with these two levels of service. Istalik, which means to reveal here. Right. It can mean depart. It's one of those things, a lot of words mean the thing and its opposite. So the istalkus of a tzaddik means when the tzaddik leaves the world. But really what it means also simultaneously is that the istalkus is that istalik is a level of him coming to the world, which is sort of his derech shlila, if you will. In other words, like we talk about Hashem, there's certain things you can know about Hashem, there's things that you can't know about Hashem. He's beyond knowledge. So the beyond knowledge part is actually higher than the knowledge part. Because that which you can grasp, it's already a sign that it contracted itself to come into your perspective. that which is beyond grasp, doesn't mean it's not there, it just means it's beyond your grasp. So the idea of istalik means removed, but here it also means to reveal. So then it's telling you that it's revealing an aspect which is normally removed and out of your perception. That's why it has also the meaning of not being there, and it also has the meaning of being revealed, the totally opposite. So when it's talking about being revealed, it's talking about revealing an aspect which is the non-aspect, the ayin as opposed to the yesh. So for example, a tzaddik, you celebrate their yurtzeit, he's stalkus, doesn't mean they're not there. It means they're now there in a way where you can't even see them. It's a higher level of being there. You know, kadi skafia sitra achra, when the sitra achra is subdued, istalik, it's revealed, yikara de kuchabrichu is the glory. The yakara is glory, like yakar of Kadosh Baruch Hu, bekulhu almin, in all the worlds. Okay, so now we go into an important point here. What does it mean, the words "in all the worlds"? Right? How would you guys think to explain that? Right. That's what is first instinct, right? In all the worlds means all the four worlds or whatever worlds there are. He's going to reveal it. Now it doesn't just reveal in one world; it reveals in all the world. So he comes right away and says that that's not how to read it, although that's what it seems, right? And he says, "V'hine masha omer b'kulhu almin." This that he says in all the worlds. What does that mean? Hakavana al madregas haor duhu b'kulhu almin b'shaveh. So the intention here is on a level of light which is in all worlds equally. So it doesn't just mean that this light comes and gets revealed in world A, world B, and world C. But rather, when it says, when you have iskafi, you reveal the light, the glory of Hashem in all the worlds, it's describing the type of light. It's the type of light which is equal in all worlds. Hainu, or hasovev kolomi, which means the or of sovev. As we've discussed many times, that in the presence of sovev, there's no such thing, high and low no longer exists. Right? Because it basically equalizes everything. The light of sovev.
It transcends it? It's above it?
Well, here we're saying that you reveal that light you reveal that light. So in other words, it's above it, in and as much as we call it surrounding light. There's a concept that it's above it, but it doesn't mean that it's not in it. There's a whole parak of Tanya devoted to this notion. Sovev light permeates everything. It's just that it's why do we call it sovev and surrounding light? Because it's not perceptible by the creation, right? But here's the whole point: it's equally imperceptible by high as it is to low. You know, just by being high, you don't have greater access to the sovev light than you do by being low, because it's a light which is by definition beyond the kelim of any creature, and therefore that's why it equalizes high and low. It makes that there's no distinction anymore between high and low, because being high is because you can experience more light. But if you're dealing with sovev light, which defies being experienced, it doesn't enable itself to be grasped by anything, then being high and being low is the same. You can grasp it just as much as you can when you're low as when you're high, which is none. Right? So this light nullifies the distinction between worlds. And that's what it means, Bakulhu Almin. It could either mean what Moshe said, in each and every world, in all the worlds, but that's already talking about a light which comes into distinction. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about rather a light which is of the quality of Kulhu Almin, which means it's equal in all worlds the same. So when you have Iskafia, when you do this job, which is one of the primary forms of service, Iskafi and Ishabcha, which is in order to make a Mishkan, what do you do? That we're saying where you draw down the Shekhinah, which is the whole notion of these 7 levels of tzaddikim that drew each one successively the Shekhinah to the world. They drew down this Or Maki, they drew down this Or Sovev by performing their function of Iskafia. Shamer b'kol ha'olamos b'shaveh. It shines in all the worlds equally, this Or Sovev. And now he goes into this in detail. He starts off by speaking about, now at length, Or Mamale, the light which is not Sovev, but the light which does have a distinction between one world and the next. And then by way of comparison, he's going to come and say, when we don't mean that light, we mean the light which is Sovev. So now he goes through a whole, basically, lesson of Or Sovev here, with Or Mamale.
Is he going to explain how we can grasp or see so in a revealed way?
Not necessarily do you. Not necessarily do you have to. But the fact that you bring it here, in other words, means
Can we know that it's here though?
in other words, the world becomes a godly place. In other words, the world becomes subdued when you bring this level of light into the world. I mean, I guess there's signs and simanim. Of course, when Moshe brought into the world, there was major things happening, miracles and so forth. But the idea is that either whether you see the revelation or not, the effect of this service is that it brings down this light into the world. Whether you're going to see, the whole idea is that it's beyond revelation is the truth. The whole chiddush that light can also be revealed. We talked about this in the Maimer of Yehuda and Yosef a little bit. That on Shabbos, that in other words, we spoke about the idea of the Shmona Esrei. That in Bisman Hazeh, it's silent. The last Lav, we're going to say the Shmona Esrei loud. The whole idea of the Shmona Esrei is a bitul. Bitul b'tachlis, to the point that you are not even there. That according to the opinion of Kabbalah, of the Zohar, you shouldn't even hear yourself speak the words of the Shemona Esrei, because it represents a state of non-entity on your part. And therefore, since you're a non-entity, you suddenly are able to be a kli for the infinite. If you're something, then the infinite can't be in your place. If you're nothing, then you're not in the way. So infinite can be there. But you have to be silent in order to do that. So that's the idea of what we're saying, like doing the avoda of iskafi and so forth is like silencing yourself to allow this light which is beyond comprehension to be there. And you do. But there's like a part plan B, which is that someday in the future, we're going to actually scream out the Shemona Esrei, which means we're not going to lose that state of bittul, but it was going to also be revealed. So in other words, yeah, also it'll be revealed one day, but that's not necessarily the ikr. The ikr is getting it here. And that happens through iskafia. You may or may not see the signs of the revelations of that. Okay. So, in Olamos, yesh chiluki madregas. There's different levels. The Eino Dome, Olamos Elyonim, the Olamos Tachtonim. And you can't compare the higher worlds to the lower worlds. I don't think I
Read
skipped.
from
I could have
Shemar,
skipped.
B'Shaveh.
Yeah, we said that.
Oh.
That shines into all the worlds equal. That's the Ur Sover that you just described. The Hainu Ur Sover Kolomen, Shemeir B'Chol Olam B'Shaveh.
Sorry.
Okay, so you can't compare the higher worlds to the lower worlds. But Olmos Elyonim, in the higher worlds, Meir Ha'or B'Gilui. The light shines openly. The godly light is everywhere. Like we were just talking about, this is revelation everywhere. But Olmos HaTachtonim, whereas in the lower worlds, Ha'or Eino Meir B'Gilui Kol. The light does not shine so much in revelation. You don't see what's going on. We're in concealment. And there's even lowest worlds where you don't. Not only do you not see so much revelation, but the light is completely concealed. The light comes in a way where it's concealed and covered over. And he says, when you have in this different levels, the Kamosha Kasuv, Af Yadi Yazda Aretz, V'yamini Tapcha Shamayim. I wish I had the right pronunciation on this one. Sorry, I think that's it. Tifcha Shamayim? I'm not sure. Anyway, it says, even my hand founded the earth, and my right hand spread forth the heavens. Founded, like Yesod. Ve'isa Midrash, right? And it says in the Midrash, Nata Yamino, my right hand, it says, even my hand founded the earth, and my right hand spread forth the heavens. And then it says a similar thing in the Midrash. Nata Yamino Ubara Shamayim. He stretched out his right hand and he created heavens. Nata Smolo Ubara Aretz. He stretched out his left hand and he created the earth. So you see that both of these psukim are talking about the Indian of the right hand goes in the heaven and the left hand goes in the earth. Because the first one doesn't say left hand, but it says my hand created the earth and my right hand created the heavens. You see that? So it's going. The left hand is the one that created the earth. But you do it the Yad Yamin, Marala Orva Gila Yosef. And it's known that the right hand expresses and teaches regarding a greater level of revelation of light. That's the right hand is a strong hand, so when Hashem makes something with a strong hand, it's more, it's greater. V'zeu v'yaminu tivcha shamayim. And that's what it means, his right hand made the heaven. Spread forth the heaven. The shamayim, what does it mean, heaven, shamayim? Hakavana olam asel yon. It means the higher worlds. Sham hagilud b'chinas yamin. And there in those higher worlds, the revelation is on a level of right hand, the strong hand. Shu giloyor, which means a high level of revelation. Va'or atzmo hu b'chinas gilud. Which means that not only is there light there, but the light itself is shining. It's at a level of revelation. Whereas Aretz, Hakavana Olmos HaTachtoni, it means the lower worlds. Hem and Bechinas small, and they represent the left hand, Tzimtzum, the Gevura. She'ena or Begile Kolkach, where there's not so much light in those worlds, or I shouldn't say there's not so much light. There's not so much revealed light in those worlds. Obviously, there's light everywhere; otherwise, they wouldn't be there. But there's not revelation in those worlds of the light. So in other words, there's not so much revelation, and on the contrary, the light itself comes in a way where it comes in a way of concealing itself. Not only does it not shine, but it comes in a way of hiding. It is known the difference between the four worlds. The Ksiv, Kol hanikra bishmi lichvodi barasav yitzarsav af asisav. So we say this pasuk, also in Pirkei Avos we mention this, that Kol hanikra bishmi, everything which is called in my name, ulichvodi, and in my glory, barasav, he formed it, yitzarsav, he created it, he formed it, af asisav, he even made it. So this pasuk is hinting to the four worlds, obviously. But Shmi Uchvodi is Atzilus, and then Barasa Mitzvah Asisav is Bri Yitzir Nasiya. Shem Dalid Olamos Atzilus Bri Yitzir Nasiya. Because it says Barasa is Bria, Yitzarsav is Yitzira, and Asisav is Asiya. Yeah. Okay. So he says, and he says, in this way, the light is not as it is in Atzilus, the way it is in Biyah, the lower three worlds. Because what is Atzilus? Atzilus is called the revelation of the concealed. What does that mean? The revelation of the concealed is an interesting concept here. Giloy HaHelam, the Helam here is referring to the Orein Sof, which is Sovev light basically, which is Behelam and cannot be seen. Right? In other words, we say like the concept that before Hashem came into the world of Atzilus, he was not even in a position to create anything. Because the light was so finite that nothing could exist except for it. And therefore it sort of maintained its infinite. The light was so infinite that nothing could exist except for it. And therefore, since nothing could exist except for it, it was in a state of complete removal from any other thing. Right? So the first move was to bring that very light into a state of revelation that some form of the original Orein Sof could be seen. And that was accomplished through a tzimtzum. In other words, he had to perform some function on it to limit it in some way. But ultimately, the tzimtzum was to bring what is in state of concealment into a state of revelation. That's called Giloy HaHelam. He revealed what was in the Helam, in the Ein Sof, and he brought it to a certain state of revelation that it had a certain coordinates that it could be expressed into existence in some form, and that's called the world of Atzilus. So it brings the Orein Sof into sort of a yesh type of, from an ayin to a yesh to a certain degree. Not true yesh, you know, it's not creation yet, but it's the Orein Sof in a yesh-like version that it can now be used to make creation. That's called Giloy HaHelam, revealing the concealed. And then that's the Indian of Atzilus, and then of course the word Atzilus is Melashin Etzlo, V'samuch. It means by him, close, because it's still godly light. It hasn't transformed itself from its a basic nature of being Elokus to becoming a creation yet. So it's still called by him and close to him because the word it's still or Ein Sof. Nearness. The Kain Perush Atzilus Melashen Hatzala B'Hafrasha. So the word Atzilus not only does it mean close, it also means to separate something. Like Hafrashas Chala, let's say, is a word. Like you take a little piece of challah from the main thing and you take it off. And you separate your challah. Right? So again, you still have the same dough in your hand, but you just moved it from its pool where it's indistinct and unified, and there's no divisions or anything. It can't really be. In other words, that piece of challah, which is inside. And when I say challah, I mean like the piece that you take off in order to give challah to the Kohen, right? That piece of challah, before you took it off, it's still its own unique entity, but it's just that it's swallowed up inside of the bigger dough, and it's unseen, it's unknown. So the idea of taking it off is that you're bringing it into a state of realization on its own. So the same thing is true with the Or Ein Sof. Like this level of Atzilus, which was there and available to create worlds with, was always sitting inside of the Or Ein Sof, but it was swallowed up inside the challah, the big dough. And the idea of Atzilus is separating a little piece of it, so you have a little, like, workable piece of Or Ein Sof that you can now make worlds with. And that's also the word Atzilus means. It means to separate a little piece of Or Ein Sof from the big dough.
When we say Or Ein Sof, we mean Hashem's essence?
Not even Hashem's essence. The Or Ein Sof is the infinite light that comes out of Hashem's essence. But that light itself is infinite. In other words, Hashem's essence is not merely light. Hashem's essence can also not shine. It can shine and it can not shine.
You can't describe it.
Right. So the essence is not the light, although the light is a revelation of the essence, and that's why it goes on forever and it's unfathomable. So that light, even though it's something that's already Hashem is revealing from himself to a certain degree, he's expressing, I should say, from himself. Since it's an expression of the essence, it's like the essence. And it's totally beyond comprehension. Like there's nothing to talk. We can't make worlds with that. It's Hashem's essential light. Therefore, he has to be mafrish, a little challah from that light, and make a little tzimtzum, put the rest on the side, and now he's got his atzilus, right? And it means close. Same thing. It's like a hafrasha. It's like to remove something.
What's the difference between Or Ein Sof and
Ein Sof would be like the essence, and the Or Ein Sof is the light of the Ein Sof, which shines off the essence. It's a major distinction there, really.
One phrase before, how do you translate the
Samuch is close. Atzilus im hayoso b'chinas olam, because Atzilus, even though we do call it a world, right? There's 4 worlds, and Atzilus is one of them. Aval b'klaluso hu b'chlal olamos ha'ein sof. But really, in its general description, it's more shaykh to being Ein Sof, to being godliness, than it is to being worlds. It's called one of the worlds of the Ein Sof, which means that there's many worlds before you get to the actual creation, which is called the Bria, right? Basically, from Bria and on, you have something which is called creator and created. The Bria, the stage called Bria, which comes directly after Atzilus, is already called, you have something else, as it were, besides Hashem. Now, of course, learn Chassidus, it's not something else, Chas v'shalom, besides Hashem, but it definitely appears to itself as though it's besides Hashem. Hashem is truly concealed from it, and it has its own experience of a self. And from Bria, it already begins like that. So Bria, Tzir, Nasiya, that's already happening. So everything above that, including Atzilus, is called Olamos Ha'ein Sof. They're worlds, but they're not worlds in the normal sense where it's actually like a created world. It's worlds of Ein Sof. And meaning this, there's Atzilus, and there's Tohu, and there's Keser, and Atik, and Arich, and Adam Kadmon, and Vesper Spheres Aganuzos, and all kinds of wonderful things. Tahiri La, Tahir, Tata, whatever. It goes on and on and on. There's worlds and worlds and worlds and worlds and worlds. Thousands and millions of worlds. But all of them are godly worlds, which means none of them experience themselves at all. Right? They're just sort of like different. Just like, for example, what is that? How do we describe Atzilus? Atzilus is like the man sitting on a chariot. So it's Hashem, as Hashem decides to sort of enclose himself in intellect and emotion and action, but it's Hashem's intellect, emotion, and action. It's not like there's something created here. It's Hashem, as he's presenting himself with intellect and emotion and action. It's not something other than Hashem. It's Hashem's as He takes form, if you will. So all those worlds are really just Hashem sort of in a certain level of form, less and less concrete as you go up. What he's trying to say here is that Atzilus is still one of those worlds, even though it's called and it's part of the essential body of the four worlds, which three of them are already the real created worlds. Atzilus still has this. It's called a world because it's already to a certain degree, as we just saw, separated from the Ein Sof. It's different than those other worlds that we just described because all those worlds were in the realm of total concealment from creation, whereas Atzilus already comes to a certain degree into becoming the source of creation. Those worlds are not even called the source of creation; they're beyond. So Atzilus already it's associated with the worlds, but it's still really more shaykh to the higher worlds than it is to the lower worlds.
And a contradiction to what you said before, like Atzilus is more relevant to us, and it's just as infinite from Ein Sof as it is as we are Ein Sof. Atzilus. Say that?
Yeah, you did say that. But nonetheless, that just means to show you that there's a point inside of the worlds, which are the worlds of Bechlal are, in comparison to the Sovev light, are totally incomparable. But there's a point inside of them which itself bears an infinite light, which means to say that even that level of infinite light is incomparable completely compared to the infinite light which is beyond it. But nonetheless, it's still an infinite light. It's true. It's a very good point.
How do you put the two of the color form
Eino dome klal. Oh. So he says Abba B'Klalu. So in general, Hu B'Klal, it's included. Olamos HaEin Sof. It's included into the worlds of the Ein Sof.
So you say Atzil B'Samo, saying that it's close. It's a
But no cigar. Right.
Okay.
So that piece of chaz is still right next to it.
Right. In other words, look at, for example, the sphere of Chokhmah. Because Atzilus in general is associated with the sphere of Chokhmah, right? Because you have Chokhmah, Bina, and Midos, and Malchus is the four worlds also. So in a small verse, we can look at Chokhmah. And what have we been describing lately about Chokhmah is that it's Koach Ma, that it is a sphera whose whole entity is a non-entity. And therefore it's able to bear inside of it infinity, right? So that's what Atzilus is. But the thing is, it's still an entity. It's just an entity which is a non-entity. But it's already a sphere in the world, which means it's already, even though it's this wondrous thing that it's the bridge to bring infinity inside of a finite place, it itself is still called Reishis Chokhmah. It's still the first of 10 spheres. It's not considered separate from the world. It's just it's this unique kli which is able to be in the world but have an association with Elokus or Bittul and true godliness while it's yet in the world. So it's a bridge. On one hand it has Elokus, but on the other hand it's in the world. And that's why we do consider it as one of the four worlds at Atzilus. But on the other hand he says really its proper boundary, Geder, is really it's one of the worlds of the Ein Sof. It's the last of the worlds of the Ein Sof, because even though we have this infinite light, now you have this final kli called Chachma, which is able to bring the infinite light into the world. It's the intermediary. So it's both. It's on one hand it's still drawing from the well of infinite light, but because it's now drawing that infinite light into the finite worlds, so it has an association for sure. Maybe you could say first and foremost with the finite world. It's just that its function, the finite world, is to associate itself with the infinity from above. So therefore, you bring up a perfect point. It's kind of a paradox. On one hand, it's infinite. On the other hand, its connection with infinite is as immaterial as the Asiya's connection with infinite, because it is in the world. So this is an interesting. It plays an interesting role. No, it plays an interesting role. This is like really a bridge to these two things.
It's not here, but it's not there.
Because if you want to bring infinity inside the world, which is ultimately the goal, is to fuse these two things together, Chokhmah, this is the key, because it bears both. It bears both sides of the puzzle. It totally understands what it means to be completely incomparable to the Ein Sof, because it's one of the four worlds. On the other hand, it's still called one of the worlds of the Ein Sof. So it has absolute a feeling for its etzel and samuch, and it's a hafrasha of mamash godliness itself. So it's an intermediary, and therefore it's the bridge to bring these two things together. It's very important. Im hayoso, even though,
Isn't Chokmah little?
yeah, which is basically what we just said.
So in order to, for the light, for our light to shine, we need to become little. You have to become little and be like, and feel like you're nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
Be little.
yeah. I don't know if it means feel like you're nothing, but yeah, in other words,
Nothing.
yeah. Just don't take that in the wrong direction. That you should doesn't mean you should feel lowly about yourself.
Humility, modest.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, where are we? What's that?
Masha'in can the fourth
Where does the line start with? Oh, okay. Masha'in kin bria, shu haschalas hamatzias, b'chinas yesh ma'ayin. This is already a different story altogether. This is the beginning of mitzias. The word mitzias comes from the word to be found, nimtzo, to be found, to be an entity. So Atzilus is not really an entity, like Moshe just said. It's a feeling of absence of self. It's still godliness. It doesn't feel that it is there. It feels that it's not there. Bria is the beginning of Metzias. Bechinas yesh me'ayin. It already starts the something from the nothing, which, as we said before, that's where really creation officially starts. That's why the word Bria means creation. Because it's already creation means there's a creator over there, and this is the creation over here. There's two things. So that separation, that feeling of self, is the beginning of separate existence. Vezeu kol hanikra b'shmi v'lichvodi. Going back to the verse which it describes these four worlds, all that is called in my name and my glory, shmi uchvodi hu amiyuchad biyadayim. So if it's called my name and my glory, then it's still Hashem's, which means it's still united with Him. Yuchad biyadayim means it's still united with Him. No, this is Atzilus. Shmi uchvodi. We said, remember the pasuk is kol hanikra b'shmi uchvodi. So this is the Atzilus he's talking about, and that's what he's saying. It's called my name, my glory, which means it's not something that Hashem created. It's a emanation, is what we call it, the world of emanation. It's an emanation of Hashem. An emanation of something is very different than a creation. A creation is already something other than Him. An emanation is what's shining off of Him Himself. That's my name and my glory. Shekai al olama atzilus, and that refers to the world of atzilus, shu olama yichud, means klalus, which is the world of unity and joining, interdependent, inter-included. Sha'or sham betachlis agilu, and the light there is completely revealed. You know, it's like it's removing the Or Ein Sof, like a little piece of challah from this big dough. And it shows you this is still dough. It's not transformed itself from. It's gilui hahelim, as we called it before. It's taking something which was in concealment, which is the Ein Sof, and showing it to you. So its whole inyan is to reveal the Ein Sof. It's Hashem's name. It's His glory. It's showing you God. The Eino Dome Klal the Kamoshu Ba'olamos Bri Tzir Nasiya, and it's not in any way compared to the lower three worlds. Ubri Tzir Nasiya Atzman. Okay, so now in these lower three worlds themselves, yesh chiluk and midregos. There's also a different levels. B'hagiloi, oros. Right? In the revelation of the lights, kamo shuhu ba'olam abriya ba'olam yitzira basiya. As these lights are revealed in each world respectively. Amnam, however, kol zehu ba'or shabal hachayos es ha'olamos. But nonetheless, all these distinctions that we're going to get into when it comes to Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya is all light that comes to enliven worlds. Which is, it's not just light which is revealing God anymore. It's light which is crawling into vessels to hide inside of other creations and just to be the energizing force of other things. It's no longer just there to show you godliness. And that's called Mamali Kol Olmin. That's what it means. It fills the world. It doesn't just come to shine God's light. Right? And the truth of the matter is, I think when he says Amnam over here, he's even referring to Atzilus. In other words, all this light comes to enliven worlds in a state of Mamali Kolam. Even Atzilus is Mamali Kolam. Even though it's bringing the light of Sovev and shining it and showing it is revealing it, but nonetheless it's bringing it out to reveal it in the worlds. It's not, in other words, there's still the notion of light in vessel in Atzilus. The difference is that the vessels are God's attributes as opposed to creations. Right? So in other words, it's not in